Welcome back to another CC Outdoors video. Today we're going to be talking about the jig. There we go. Good largie. That's why we throw the jig right there. Just gone. Fishing on a rock flat. Alright, so let's talk about the jig a little bit, what it's designed for first. So I'm here throwing an AT jig currently, which it's sort of like a football jig, but it's got a little bit of a different head design. But this jig here is used in the same situations as a football jig. So we're just going to talk about football jigs in general for this video. So the football jig is designed for deep structure. You know, it's made for rocks, sand, maybe if you're fishing some hard stem bulrushes. You're not going to want to be fishing these in grass or even under docks or whatever, because they're going to get hung up. There's different types of jigs for those situations. And yeah, that's really it. You want to be fishing these things on deep structure, which we'll be going over a little bit more later in the video, how to find that structure, all that. But yeah, I kind of want to start out just talking about your different, varying your retrieve with this bait, because there's a couple different ways to do it. There's the bait right there. So I'm just going to cast it out there. I'm not going to close my spool until it hits bottom, just so we can make the most out of this cast. Otherwise the bait comes towards you as it sinks. So wait for my line to stop going. There it stopped. So there's two main ways that I like to fish the football jig, especially later in the season like this. It can be tricky. You have to fish it right, otherwise the fish are not going to like it. So first off is just your standard popping it back. Just kind of popping it over every rock out here. And then giving it a second. If you don't get a bite, keep popping it back. Let it drop. There, I think I just got bit. And I missed it. But yeah, you're going to want to wait for the line to pop on the fall. So I'm just popping it back, letting it fall, watching my line. I didn't get that tick, so I'm just going to keep popping it. I think that fish messed up my trailer. Might have been a gill. So the next type of retrieve we're going to talk about is like stroking the jig, is what some people call it. This thing at the bottom here. Alright, it's on bottom. So stroking a jig is probably the simplest way to do this. It doesn't really take any skill at all. You just lift your rod tip up and then you let it fall. Once it's on bottom, lift your rod tip, let it fall. There's not really much to this retrieve. It doesn't take much skill. You just lift your rod, let it fall. I found this to be most effective on really slow days, like if the fish are just not wanting to eat. Stroking a jig, because it'll bring it past their face, kind of cause a reaction bite. And that's almost the same with that popping it back to the boat too, is you're hopping that bait kind of fast. You're not fishing it crazy fast, so if the fish are moving slow, they can still grab it. And the last retrieve we're going to talk about is just dragging it, which kind of similar to stroking the jig. It's different. You keep this, when you're dragging a jig, you don't pull it off of the bottom. You kind of just let it lay there and stay in the rocks the whole time. But yeah, I'm going to have to stand back here for showing this. You're going to want to keep your rod tip low. I've got it a little bit higher for this demonstration just so the camera can see it. But all we're doing is this. And it seems like every time I'm getting hung up on a rock or whatever. So right here, as you can see, I'm stuck on a rock. So in this case, you're not going to want to pull it. That is going to wedge your bait in between the rocks, or your jig in between the rocks. Give it a high pop like that, and it'll come through. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of jigs, and I learned that one the hard way. I didn't really know how to fish a football jig in years prior. This year I've kind of taught myself a little better. But yeah, when you hit a boulder or a big rock, you're going to want to pop your rod tip up. Otherwise, you're going to lose a lot of jigs because you're going to wedge them in there, fray up your line, and they'll just break off. Alright, so I'm going to throw up some screenshots here, just on like Navionics, of locations you're going to want to fish. And then I'll also throw up some Humminbird screenshots of areas. But basically, you're going to want to be fishing a lot of points on the deeper sides of them. 10 to 20 feet is typically where this jig excels, depending on your lake. Some lakes hold bass in 25, 30 feet of water. If it works there, throw on a half, 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce jig, and you're good. But yeah, I like to be in that 10 to 20 foot range, typically when I'm fishing the jig. And I like to at least be on hard bottom, if not rocks, typically. Some sand flats. Oh, I thought I just got smoked. Some sand flats do tend to hold fish, but like our Minnesota largemouth don't really hang out on sand flats, it seems. But yeah, rocks and bulrushes, stuff like that is about it where I fish this bait. Okay, so next up is conditions. Now this bait is special because you don't need really any specific conditions. As you can see behind me, not a cloud in the sky, almost no wind. It's pretty nice out though. It's 69 degrees, so it's not warm. But that's besides the point. You don't need any great conditions. I mean, sometimes you, like if you're fishing a spinner bait, you need cloud and wind, and other than that, that bait isn't going to excel in any other conditions. But the jig, I'm fishing it, sun's high in the sky, not a cloud up there, no wind, and I can also fish this bait when it's cloudy and windy or whatever. The only thing is you're going to want to vary your colors based off of the conditions. Alright, so at this point, just through this clip only, it happened, luckily, not the rest of the video. But my mic went all goofy on my camera and it was making weird noises. But basically, when it comes to conditions, you're just going to want to vary your color. If it's going to be darker out, low light, use a darker colored jig like a black or a peanut butter and jelly type color. And if it's brighter out, you're going to want to be throwing a more natural color because those fish are going to be able to see that bait better. So your like green pumpkins or whatever your craws look like in your lake, you could use oranges, whatever. But yeah, just vary your color through conditions and try to be natural if the sun is high. Alright, so the last thing we're going to be talking about today is going to be your setup. Now, I would argue that setup is by far the most important out of anything else I've talked about in this video. And the setup I'm using right now, I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. Just the rod. I might have to throw this on like a little bit longer and maybe heavier rod. I'm not sure. I just got to get a feel for it. I haven't had this rod too long. But this right here is a 7-1 medium heavy fast. It handles these fish all right. I haven't lost any fish on a jig with this rod yet. But it might be a little light. I might want to switch it up to like a 7.4 heavy or a 7.6 heavy, because next up I'm going to talk about is your line. I'm using 17-pound fluorocarbon. Can you get away with fishing braid on a jig? Absolutely. I've done it for years. This is really the first year that I've fished any fluorocarbon. But yeah, if you're going to be fishing on a medium heavy rod, I would recommend braid, because even though it's fluorocarbon and it's not supposed to stretch, it still has a little bit of stretch, and you can definitely feel it when you're setting the hook there. But if you're fishing it on a heavier rod, you definitely are going to want fluoro, just so you don't rip that hook out and stuff like that. Also, fluorocarbon is more abrasion resistant So when you're banging on these rocks, your line isn't going to get as nicked up as, say, braid would or mono. And also, like for me, I'm in Minnesota, we have very clear water up here compared to other states. Fluorocarbon, I mean, some of these lakes, this lake I fish braid on a lot. It's a little bit dirtier, like 3-foot clarity. But we've got other lakes that have like 30-foot clarity that you have to throw fluoro. I won't even bother with braid on those lakes. But yeah, that's kind of all you need to know about the jig. So let's hopefully get on to some fish catches. Not a giant, but I missed this fish like 3 times. I'm just fishing like a weed edge to a hard bottom area. So I'm just trying to cast right on the edge of the weeds and onto the sand. But yeah, another fish, so I'm not going to complain. I've got about 25 more minutes to fish, so I think I'm just going to hit this spot hard. Hopefully pull 1 or 2 off of it instead of keep moving like I was doing earlier, not having any success if I didn't catch them right away. Oh yeah, that's a 4. Look at that largie right there. Just smoked the jig. Barely had him hooked. I must have ripped some of the skin on the outside of his mouth. That's a very solid fish right there. We're just gonna get a quick picture, get him right back. Alright guys, so that is gonna be a wrap on today's video. Thank you guys all for checking in. And if you're not already, please be sure to hit that subscribe button. If you want to see more videos like this, just go on my channel. I've got a couple of tips videos, and there are going to be more on the way throughout the fall and then into the ice fishing season. Do a lot of videos and a lot of tips videos, everything like that. Thank you for watching CC Outdoors, and I'll see you in the next video.